For over a century, we've been taught a simple story. Homo sapiens evolved in Africa around 300,000 years ago. Neanderthals evolved in Europe and Asia. The two species existed separately. When modern humans migrated out of Africa 60,000 years ago, they encountered Neanderthals, and the Neanderthals went extinct. Two separate species, no overlap, no interbreeding, clean evolutionary lineages. But here's the problem. Inside the DNA of every person of European and Asian descent, there are fragments of Neanderthal genes, not traces, not contamination. Functional DNA that influences skin color, immune response, and even susceptibility to certain diseases. Up to 4 of the genome in some populations. Neanderthals didn't disappear. They became us. Lock in. After this, you'll never think about your ancestry the same way again. February 12, 2010. A team of geneticists at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig, Germany, published the results of a study that would rewrite human history. Led by Dr. Svante Pääbo, a Swedish biologist specializing in ancient DNA, the team had successfully sequenced the Neanderthal genome using bone samples from Vindiša cave in Croatia. The samples were approximately 40,000 years old. Extracting usable DNA from bones that ancient is extraordinarily difficult. DNA degrades over time. It fragments. It becomes contaminated with modern DNA from handling, from soil bacteria, from the environment. Most ancient DNA studies fail because the samples are too degraded to analyze. But Dr. Pääbo's team had developed a technique to isolate and sequence even the smallest fragments of ancient genetic material. They processed bone samples through multiple stages of purification, removing contaminants, amplifying the remaining Neanderthal DNA, and then piecing together the genome base pair by base pair by base pair. When the sequencing was complete, they compared the Neanderthal genome to the genomes of modern humans from different populations: European, Asian, African. If the evolutionary narrative was correct, there should be no significant genetic overlap between Neanderthals and modern humans beyond what would be expected from a common ancestor. That's not what they found. The data showed clear evidence of gene flow. Neanderthal DNA segments appeared in the genomes of Europeans and Asians, but not in Africans. The distribution was specific. The percentage was measurable. Some individuals carried up to 4 Neanderthal ancestry. Dr. Pääbo, in an interview with Nature, described the moment they realized what the data meant. "We knew immediately this was going to change everything," he said. "This wasn't noise. This was interbreeding. And here's why this matters. For over 150 years, the prevailing model of human evolution held that Homo sapiens and Neanderthals were separate species. Species, by definition, cannot produce fertile offspring when they interbreed. If they can, they're not separate species. They're subspecies or populations of the same species." The discovery of Neanderthal DNA in modern humans shattered that model. It meant that when Homo sapiens migrated out of Africa and encountered Neanderthals in Europe and the Middle East, they didn't just coexist, they interbreed. They had children. Those children survived, reproduced, and passed Neanderthal genes down through thousands of generations to the present day. The implications were staggering. If Neanderthals and Homo sapiens could interbreed and produce fertile offspring, they weren't separate species. They were populations of the same species that had diverged geographically and evolved different physical characteristics, but remained genetically compatible. Neanderthals didn't go extinct. They were absorbed. Dr. Richard Green, a biomolecular engineer at the University of California, Santa Cruz, who collaborated on the project, explained the significance in a press conference. "What this tells us," he said, "is that the story of human evolution is far more complex than we thought. Neanderthals are not some distant cousin that went extinct. They're part of us." The genetic evidence revealed specific details about when and where interbreeding occurred. The highest concentrations of Neanderthal DNA appeared in populations from Europe and Asia. The lowest concentrations were in sub-Saharan Africans, whose ancestors never left Africa and therefore never encountered Neanderthals. The interbreeding likely occurred in the Middle East, in a region sometimes called the Levant, around 50,000 to 60,000 years ago. This was the corridor through which early Homo sapiens migrated out of Africa and into Europe and Asia. Neanderthals already lived in these regions. When the two groups met, they didn't fight. They merged. But here's the thing the DNA also revealed. Not all Neanderthal genes survived equally. Some Neanderthal gene variants are common in modern populations. Others are completely absent, even though they were present in the sequenced Neanderthal genome. This suggests that natural selection acted on Neanderthal DNA after interbreeding. Some genes provided advantages and were preserved. Others were detrimental and were eliminated over time. Researchers identified specific Neanderthal genes that influence modern human traits. One gene, found in higher frequencies in Europeans, affects skin pigmentation, contributing to lighter skin tones. Another influences immune system function, specifically the production of proteins that help the body fight off pathogens. Dr. Janet Kelso, a computational biologist at the Max Planck Institute, described this in a 2014 study. Neanderthal genes didn't just survive randomly, she said. The ones that helped modern humans adapt to new environments were preserved. The ones that caused problems were weeded out. One of the most surprising discoveries involved the Neanderthal contribution to modern immune systems. When Homo sapiens left Africa, they encountered new pathogens, diseases their immune systems had never faced. Neanderthals had been living in Europe and Asia for hundreds of thousands of years. Their immune systems had adapted to local diseases. By interbreeding with Neanderthals, early Homo sapiens acquired immunity genes that helped them survive in unfamiliar environments. Some researchers believe this genetic exchange was critical to the success of human migration out of Africa. But here's the mystery no one expected. Further studies revealed that Neanderthal DNA isn't evenly distributed across the modern human genome. It's concentrated in certain regions and almost entirely absent from others. Specifically, Neanderthal genes are underrepresented in regions of the genome associated with brain function and reproductive biology. Dr. Joshua Akey, a geneticist at Princeton University, analyzed this pattern in a 2016 study. His findings suggested that some Neanderthal genes may have been incompatible with modern human biology. We see clear evidence of selection against Neanderthal ancestry in genes related to brain development, he said. This could mean that hybridization came with costs. Some Neanderthal genes didn't work well in a modern human genetic background. In other words, interbreeding wasn't seamless. There were genetic conflicts. Some Neanderthal gene variants may have caused developmental problems or reduced fertility when combined with Homo sapiens genus. Over time, natural selection removed these incompatible genes from the population. This raises a question no one has fully answered. If interbreeding caused genetic problems, why did it happen at all? Why didn't the two populations remain separate? Some researchers suggest that the benefits outweighed the costs. The immune genes alone may have been worth the trade-off. Others propose that interbreeding was rare, but happened often enough to leave a genetic signature. A few believe that cultural or social factors played a role, that early Homo sapiens and Neanderthals saw each other not as separate species, but as potential mates. We'll never know the full story. But the DNA doesn't lie. In 2018, researchers made another discovery that deepened the mystery. They identified a bone fragment in a Siberian cave that belonged to a teenage girl who lived approximately 90,000 years ago. When they sequenced her DNA, they found something extraordinary. Her mother was a Neanderthal. Her father was a Denisovan, another archaic human species. She was a first-generation hybrid. Proof that interbreeding between archaic human species wasn't just possible. It happened repeatedly. Dr. Pabo, who led the study, called it one of the most remarkable findings in human evolution. The girl's existence showed that different human populations didn't avoid each other. They interacted. They had children. They created genetic diversity that still exists today. And here's what this means for you. If you're of European or Asian descent, you carry Neanderthal DNA. Genes that influence how your immune system responds to infection. Genes that affect your skin pigmentation. Genes that may influence your susceptibility to certain diseases, including autoimmune disorders and depression. Neanderthals aren't extinct. They're walking around in your genome. The discovery of Neanderthal DNA in modern humans overturned decades of assumptions about evolution, species boundaries, and human history. It proved that the lines we draw between species are not as clear as we once believed. It showed that evolution is messy, complex, and far stranger than the simple narratives taught in textbooks. Pebble summarized it perfectly in a 2020 interview. "We used to think of human evolution as a tree with separate branches," he said. "Now we know it's more like a braided stream. Different populations splitting apart, coming back together, exchanging genes, and moving forward. Neanderthals are part of that stream. They're part of us. The DNA is there. The evidence is undeniable. The mystery isn't whether Neanderthals interbreed with modern humans. It's what that interbreeding cost us, what it gave us, and what it means for the future of our species. If you made it this far, thank you. Leave a like if this rewrote what you thought you knew about human evolution. Tell us if you've ever taken a DNA test and discovered Neanderthal ancestry. And remember, your ancestors weren't just Homo sapiens. Some of them were something else entirely.